A lot of concerns coming through on debt levels globally. We also hear that Dubai World under the spotlight at this stage, saying that it wants to delay repaying around $26 billion. Apart from that, Spain, Portugal, Greece also under the spotlight. Are we worried about this? Should we be worried about this when looking at it from a South African context?
Well, I think the markets have been hit by that news when it broke and those concerns did start coming out. I think at this point in time, we're starting to look at solutions coming through there. Maybe they're not ideal solutions, maybe they're just short-term solutions, and maybe it's going to take a bit longer for these things to resolve themselves. But it does look like plans are being put in place. So I think some of those concerns are starting to move on to the back burner for now. And I think that's what's helped the markets also to get a bit of a boost in the short term.
Well, on the local bourse, we gained 1.7%, really boosted by the resource sector. So we are still seeing gains coming through on the local front. So a lot of liquidity in South Africa at this stage. But we've also got earnings season underway, and we've got a mixed bag of results. At the end of the day, we are seeing the defensives doing better than what the cyclical stocks are doing.
Yes, I mean, these resources stocks have ebbed and flowed, and as this news of or the scares of global growth maybe not accelerating as fast as it was anticipated to do, and those are the concerns that we saw coming through in the resources prices. They've subsequently come back now. We've seen gold higher, platinum higher, some of the base metals are back up, oil up again at $74 a barrel. So as the markets starts getting a little less concerned about the growth outlook, those resources come back into favor. So it almost changes on a daily basis these days.
Hulamin came out with results yesterday. Company that is under pressure, but says things looking better from here onwards, and of course also putting strategies in place to restructure some of its business. Apart from that, no dividend declared. A little bit disappointing, but no surprise there.
No surprise. On the good news front, they did say their Q4 sales were better. I think that was the one little bright spot in that whole results announcement yesterday. But as you say, no dividend. They are looking at the whole capital structure of the company, potentially maybe even going to raise new equity just to get their long-term funding in place. So in the light of that, if you're looking to raise cash, you don't want to be giving out dividends with the other hand. So I think no dividend there. And then it's just a company that's struggled given the resource environment and the demand for their products. The other side issues, they've just put in R1 billion extra capacity, probably at the wrong time, in the shorter term. Obviously, these things are done with the medium to longer term outlook. But in the short term, that's probably hurt them, creating all that extra capacity. And then also, we've got BHP Billiton, their supplier of their raw materials. They've been saying, well, no extrusion billet, that was the first thing, and now no rolling slabs. These are the inputs into the process. So they've got to source these elsewhere, import materials, and I think gives management a bit of a headache from time to time.
Grindrod also set to release results later on this week, and also a nice stock to take a look at where the world economy is going, because it is also quite linked to the Baltic Dry Index. What are you expecting for this company?
Yeah, it's very much linked to global trade. I think a share like Grindrod, though, a lot of the time they lock in their contracts for a year. So sometimes the actual results for that period may reflect the prices that they've locked in a year ago. But I think global seaborne trade has declined over the last year quite dramatically. So I think that will impact their numbers quite a bit this time around.
Anglo American also set to release results later on this week, and we saw American Amplats coming out with very weak results, and many say that this is obviously going to influence Anglo American's results as well. No surprise that the company is still under pressure, but one of the big things that everyone's looking out for, are we going to be seeing the reinstatement of that dividend?
I don't think we're going to see a dividend this time round still. They've got I think about $12 billion of debt still on the balance sheet. They are still going through the process of reorganizing, selling off non-core assets, optimizing the business. And I think they've made quite a lot of inroads into that. But maybe a dividend this time around is a bit too much to ask for at this point. They're also looking to inject cash into De Beers, as one of the 3 shareholders there. They've got the Anglo Platts rights issue. They're going to need some funding there. So probably going to hold back on the dividend, I would think, this time.
We've also got retail sales set to be released in South Africa this week, and the previous reading, a contraction of 6.6%, really disappointing at this stage. Craig, the South African consumer is under pressure. Are you expecting some relief with the next reading?
Well, we've been hoping that it's going to get better for some time now. If we look at the retail sales numbers coming through from the retailers, the listed retailers, it looks a bit better than the actual retail sales numbers would suggest. So I think we are looking for some improvement, probably still be negative in December, but hopefully the trend will start improving from now on.
We've also got Willies out with results this week, and I think that'll be quite indicative of what's going on in the retail space as well. Yes,
Willies and Truworths. I think Willies have already come out with an earnings advisory, so their earnings probably going to be up somewhere in the 40% range, I would think, and that indicative of some sales coming through. Hopefully the fashion side will be doing a bit better, and obviously all their basic foodstuffs.
Quite a lot of earnings to digest this week. Something else that South Africans need to digest is, of course, the budget that will be presented tomorrow.
Yes.
What are you expecting? Anything that you're going to be looking out for tomorrow, Craig?
I think this budget, the finance minister really has a lot to think about. I think the things we will look out for, just around anything around monetary policy, inflation targeting at the Reserve Bank, if there's going to be any change to that regime. There's been some talk about exchange rate policy and pegs and all kinds of silly things. So if there's anything out on the exchange rate front. Exchange controls, I wouldn't expect anything more on that. We did get a bit of a surprise in October when they relaxed that a bit more for individuals. But maybe he'll pull another rabbit out the hat there. And really, I think the budget deficit probably going to be in line with what they discussed in October, around 7.6%, maybe slightly better for this year. And I think then just looking at their assumptions for growth and inflation going forward, probably going to increase their growth assumptions.
What do you make of the debate around the rand being pegged so that we can weaken the rand from these levels? Many say we don't have the reserves to back it up, so it's really not a viable option for us.
I think that's it exactly. We don't have reserves. Historically, our reserves have been quite low. We've built them up to just under $40 billion, but still by emerging market standards, it's a very low level of reserves. So it seems that a peg would probably be out of the question.
Absa also coming out with results, and in fact coming out
yes,
with results
Absa
today, looking at what the trading statement said, between 25 and 35% lower on headline earnings per share. So really not a good number, but do you think that things will get better from these levels?
They should do. I think I must just first point out my very red Absa tie today for the results. Yes, I think we've seen a lot of the bad news in the past. Now the cycle should be turning. We've come through this low interest rate environment. We need to see that feeding through now to credit extension. We've seen the credit extension numbers have still been, for the country as a whole, quite low. People just aren't borrowing. I think it's not a case that the banks don't want to lend. I think there's not that underlying demand for credit. People are still preferring to draw down their debt and save a bit more in this current, still uncertain environment.
Absa's exposure to single stock futures, of course, you saw the sale of Pinnacle Points, Blue Financial Services, and a couple of other companies under the spotlight for Absa as well. What do you think the next move will be on that front?
Well, you're going to get me into trouble here, these kinds of questions. But look, I think they've made the provisions where they need to. As you said, Pinnacle Point is now sold off. That's historical, and I think we're just looking past that now and looking forward.